Should we begin? It's 7:30. We get started with introductions. Okay, well, welcome everybody, all you out there in Zoom land. I have no idea, I can't see y'all, but I see that you're on our participants thing, which is great. We're just gonna go through some introductions of the different members of the resident council. And then if you do have questions, feel free to type them in the chat. We have Lindsay and Annie monitoring those. So I'll just start with myself. My name's John Ellis. I am the campus liaison. I've been working as campus liaison since June, or maybe a little earlier, but yeah, officially since June of this year. My job is to primarily to get funding from the University of Utah Student Association. So I just submitted a bill for our block party. And also submitted a bill for the fall carnival. My purpose is just to get extra funding so that we can have some of those student association or student org funds apply to us as members of the University of Utah. So that's my primary thing, and then I attend RC or resident council meetings and assist with walkthroughs, and that's kind of my main thing is campus liaison. Yeah, and I'll pass the buck to Jennifer for her to introduce herself.
Thanks, John. My name is Jennifer Reed. I'm the Director of Auxiliary Services and University Student Apartments at the University of Utah. Happy to be with you guys tonight, and I'll pass it over to Annie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Annie Pond. I am the Communications Liaison. So I work with the Facebook pages, as well as creating the newsletter that we send out every month, and then also responding and addressing different things on our text line. So please reach out to me at any time or check the Facebook page. We keep that pretty updated. So that is what I do. Lindsay, do you want to go next?
Yes, I can go next. So I'm Lindsay Soap. I am the community liaison. So what I do is I advocate for community interests through the university. I'm also work with the programming coordinator and the cultural fusion coordinator and the garden coordinator. I also plan events as part of the programming committee. So a lot of the fun activities that you do, I help plan them, and let me think. And then I also do like RA walkthroughs and residential council meetings. But that's what I do. So if you guys have any fun ideas for activities that you would like to do, go ahead and shoot me an email, and I'm always open to hearing them. Valerie, are you ready?
Yeah, I'm Valerie. I oversee the Res Life program. I'm driving right now, so I'm going to stop there, but I'm glad to be here and thankful to our resident council that's doing a great job this year. So.
Awesome. Thank you, Valerie. I have a little message just from Lexi. She is our current resident council mayor. So I'll just read that to everybody. It says, "Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming to our 2021 Fall Forum. This is from Lexi McCausland, the resident council mayor. Unfortunately, my entire household is sick and I wasn't able to make it to the forum today, but I wanted to introduce myself and some of the projects we have been working on. My focus as mayor has been to try to improve communication with residents, help support community events, and help find solution to resident concerns when possible. Major area of concerns for many residents, the council, and the administration alike has been security. Valerie, do you mind muting your real quick? I'm just getting
maybe Mariah can mute me. Sorry, I'm driving and it's raining. So.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I'm just hearing some feedback from you.
I got it.
Perfect. Thank you. So one of the major concerns as of late has been safety and security. We recently met with security supervisors over the university student apartments, and we're going to go over that information in this forum. We also appreciate this opportunity to serve the community on the resident council and are thankful to have the support of the administration in connecting with the residents. Thank you so much for everyone who has submitted questions and is here tonight. So I'm going to just briefly talk on some of the questions we've had. A lot of you were awesome and submitted great questions that we're going to address. The first question is kind of on the safety meeting that we had with security, and a lot of those are regarding some of the recent things we've seen there. So the first question that we had was, what are the current expectations and hours for coverage of nighttime security providers? And what are the protocols for witnessing a suspicious person or activity? So currently with our Youth Safety and with Allied Security, the two people that help watch our area, they cover our university student apartments from 10 p.m. to 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. And there's double coverage on some hours. So we have two people or two groups patrolling our neighborhood. University Student Apartments has a contract with Youth Safety for police and security services, and Allied Security provides contracted staff for the university security at our resident. The patrol expectations is that they are consistently and continuously patrolling, occasionally pick a post to monitor. And then whenever security sees a suspicious person, their protocol is that they are to immediately notify the university police department. As they are not allowed to engage any suspicious individuals. They are to notify University Police Department, which will provide rapid response. They also, Allied Security and Youth Security provide additional staff to support with that response. Our next question is there an understanding as to why the West Village has been seeing so many, getting hit so much more than the East Village? Are they covered by different people, or are there factors contributing? This was an interesting question that we asked Allied Security and then those in charge of just kind of patrolling our area. And from what they understood is that the West Village is larger. It has more entrances and exits along main roads, which makes it an easier target. We're learning more information about that, but this is, I think, historically been the case, that the West Village has more points of access. People can scope it from the sidewalk, and it's easier to access overall. The next question was, what measures have been put in place or are planned to be put in place to address the current number of nighttime car break-ins? That's been a significant concern, as we've seen a few car break-ins as of late that have just been kind of terrible, really sad situations. And so we talked to security, and currently Allied has implemented some personnel changes. They hired a new individual to help out, and incoming staff have been trained on specific concerns and incidents within the village. So they're going, Allied, the company that does our security patrols, is going through an internal process to review, but has already implemented language changes to directives to make patrol expectations more clear to staff. Specifically, they've made it so that patrols are to be continually going around the parking lot throughout the night, just to have more complete assessment of the security in our area. They've increased general patrolling on top of that, and that they've asked the University Police Department to help as well. And then lastly, Allied are going to be starting to implement the light bar system. That's the light on top of a police car. In the past, they haven't had that on, but they will be turning those on to increase visibility in dark areas of the village to make it easier to visualize any suspicious activity. And it also helps as a deterrent. So if people are doing anything that's suspicious and they see those lights on the security cards, it's more likely to deter any potential criminals. Fourth question was, what is the best way for community members to report concerns on the quality of nighttime security? And also to follow up with previously reported concerns. This was really important. Just we as residents have open access to call the two heads of security. Their names are Sean Ryan and Brandy Gross. I'll put their numbers in the chat just because they're accessed here. When we spoke with them, they were very much, oh, Jennifer, yeah, I see your hands raised.
Thanks, John. I was just going to make one comment about the lights on top of the vehicles because we had a specific resident question about that, saying that the lights were coming in their apartment and it made it hard to sleep. And I just wanted folks to know on the call that that was a decision that we had made together. We felt as a council and administration that if we had that option, because there's been so much concern about crime and crime in the parking lots, vehicle break-ins, that those lights would be an active deterrent to those types of break-ins. But that it's definitely something that we could discuss if it makes sleeping difficult. We know with experience in the past, adding lights to parking lots has actually been very disruptive to some of the folks that live near the parking lots, adjacent to the parking lots. And so there's a balance that we've had to find. But someone specifically asked about that. That was a decision that we felt was appropriate because of the concerns of crime. But if there's a large group of individuals that feel strongly about having those lights turned off, that would be a decision, that would be a request we could make. So that's all I had to say about it.
Oh, thank you for the clarification, Jennifer. I didn't even explain so I love that jumping in. Thank you. So yeah, these two individuals, Sean and Brandy, they were very open to, and they directly manage the safety department and oversee the contract with Allied Security. And so they encouraged residents to contact them whenever they saw something that is suspicious. I personally have put down, I just know that in the past, I haven't seen it. In the past, I may not have the number for security on me at the time. And so I just have saved that in my phone so that if I am ever out, because of course, in the heat of the moment, when you get back from a long day and you see something suspicious, you're not sure what to do. It's always good practice for us as residents to have those numbers available so that we can see something, say something, and have people come and check. Sean and Brandy were just adamantly supportive of us reaching out to them if we saw anything suspicious. Lindsay.
We are in the process of making flyers that are going to be posted in each of the stairwells that will also have the phone numbers for who you can call. And we would recommend that all residents just put it in their phone so that way they can, so if you ever lose that number, it's going to be posted in your stairwell.
Thank you. And Annie.
Also, our last newsletter had all of that information in it, which each resident should have received it in their email. And if you're not receiving your email, just update your email within your resident portal. But the last newsletter had all of that information as well.
Perfect. Thank you, Annie. Thank you, Lindsay. Those are really good things to add. So yeah, one of the ways that we can help with the security of university student apartments is to have access to that phone number and to keep our eyes out to just help out our neighbors. I'll move on to the last question in pertaining to security, which is, are there any steps that community members can take to increase safety, decrease break-ins, and support security providers? We mentioned one. Having that number and giving a call if you see anything suspicious. And once again, they're not going to be mad. They're going to love it. That's what they told us. They said, give us calls, talk to us, please. We are invested in catching these people that are causing problems. They want it much like we do. So that's one. Another resident concern, or one concern a resident brought up was lighting, that some lighting can be poor in different areas and may be more likely to be targeted because they're poorly visible. University Student Apartments has requested funding for additional lighting, but has not had funding approved. Because of the existing infrastructure with the wiring and the power lines, et cetera, that we have, it would require a massive overhaul where we'd have to pull up streets and just do a lot of stuff in order to get that lighting implemented. There is a possibility of placing temporary lighting in high hit areas. That is being discussed, how feasible that can be, and where we could implement that. So that's what we know regarding lighting. The next one is community education. We want to find ways that we can remove incentives, or we can remove incentives that will reduce the likelihood of theft. So we want to find ways that us as community members can remove all valuables from our cars, sunglasses, tools, etc., and to not leave keys in the car to heat up cars in the winter. These are things that make us more likely to be hit. And if we can do things on our end to make it less attractive to those that are breaking in, that's a great preventative measure that we can do as community members. Lindsay has her hand raised.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that we are we're in the process of planning a safety event called Walk in the Dark, which is where we're going to be walking with the safety coordinators, and the RAs are going to come, and we are going to walk around the apartment complex, and we're going to look for spots that have low visibility, so that way we're kind of aware of where some of those spots may be like targeted, and we're kind of aware of where some of those safety issues might come in place. So that is an event that's coming up that we're in the process of planning. I also think it's kind of important to note that the safety officers had said that we are like, while we've had car break-ins, we have not had any apartment break-ins. So I think that is kind of important to mention as well, is that so far all of the break-ins have been with cars. Anyway, that was it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Lindsay. The next question was specifically about cameras, and so I wanted to pass the buck over to you, Jennifer. If everyone's good and doesn't have anything else to add, I'm getting a thumbs up. So, Jennifer, it's on to you.
Great. I can discuss cameras and then move on to some of the other questions that were submitted prior to tonight's event that I've been asked to address. But I'll start with cameras so we can stay on this topic of safety. Over the years, the last 6 years, I've received many emails and had many conversations with residents about the potential of implementing cameras within the villages. We have definitely pursued what options we have in the East and West Village. But the utility infrastructure, just like with lighting, does limit us in what we're able to do. We don't have fiber in the villages with the exception of 3 buildings, and that's the main office adjacent to Sunnyside, the communication room that we have behind the main office, and the maintenance office. Other than that, there's no fiber running in the villages. And so the cameras that we have been able to install in the last 5 years are not live cameras. They are actually attached to DVRs in the laundry rooms. We did have a string of thefts in laundry rooms 4 or 5 years ago, and it was frightening. It was very violating for a lot of residents who had their items stolen. And I lived in the village at the time and can empathize with residents that it was difficult to know, especially as that the crimes were repeating. What they did find after they made arrests of multiple people is the people that were conducting the thefts were being jailed and then getting released and coming back and hitting the same spots. We made some adjustments to the type of door handles that we use in the buildings, which was a very expensive switch out. And we also spent about $300,000 on cameras interior to the courts, so that we were watching the laundry room areas and the playground areas in the case of crime, but responding after the crime was committed because the cameras could not be live. So we could go check tape, and that's difficult for crimes that happen in the evening because of the lighting. So it was a very expensive project to put 14 courts. We already had cameras in the 700 court because it was adjacent to where we have fiber. Cameras in the parking lots across 70 acres would be wildly more expensive than $300,000. And again, they would not be live with the current infrastructure. Weighing the pros and cons of what cameras would do to mitigate theft, in talking with the chief safety officer and campus police and security, spending $1 million or more on camera infrastructure when much of the village is slated to come down and be replaced over the next decade, 10 to 12 years, just doesn't seem like it's worth a value of putting your rent towards that type of project when there's other things that could be done. That being said, I understand the concern and why people might think that cameras would mitigate the type of activity. I think potentially more security and more potentially solar powered lighting, now that technology is further along in parking lots, would be money better spent than putting in cameras. There are a lot of camera systems out there that are inexpensive that can be run with Wi-Fi. We don't have Wi-Fi in the villages, as you all know. In our common spaces, we do not have Wi-Fi. We're installing that with the new construction project, but those cameras would be no good with the current infrastructure. And they also don't meet a campus camera standard that is very important to campus facilities when it comes, and the University of Utah, when it comes to liability issues. It's important that we're using a campus standard of camera. So any other specific questions about cameras? I'm always happy to talk about this issue and happy to pursue unique, innovative solutions that we haven't thought of. So if you've got an idea that maybe solves some of the problems that I'm mentioning, I would be happy to hear it, and you could reach out to me directly or email apartments or the council. So let's see, that's what I've got on cameras. I think I just want to take the opportunity before I move on to the rest of the topics to thank the council. I think having these forums twice a year to give residents the opportunity to ask questions and hear what they're doing for you as your elected representatives is great. And I appreciate Mariah Robinson here, our graduate assistant, coordinating this meeting for us. Thanks to everybody that submitted questions in advance. I do want you to know that we have an open door policy, in the main office all year long. If there are questions that you don't want to wait until a forum, or you'd rather bring them to University Student Apartments Administration instead of the council or your RA, please reach out, stop by. Had a great meeting with a couple of residents that stopped by this week with some questions, and always have an open door. So this is an awesome opportunity for us to talk in kind of a scheduled manner. But if you have concerns or questions throughout the year, please let us know. There's people behind the decisions that are being made at the University of Utah, and all of those people are accessible. We're not trying to do anything in private. We're trying to operate the student apartments with transparency. And so always happy to have a conversation about anything. I think I'll start with, we had a few questions on the new family and graduate housing, the construction project that is actively going on in the West Village right now. There's been some trees removed in the last week. Unfortunately, it's been hard to watch. But the Jacobson Construction, who was awarded the project, is clearing the site to prepare to start the aggregate pier work right after Thanksgiving. There's going to be 504 apartments built on that site, and then some parking associated with those new apartments that will be built on what is the 300 and 600 court right now. Those residents that still live in the 300 and 600 court were notified that they'll need to be transferred or move out by the end of next June. And then those buildings will have hazardous materials abatement conducted, and they'll be demolished, and we're going to build some parking on those two courts. So that's the total project site will be what was the 300, 600, 400, and 500 court in the West Village. We're hoping this is phase one of new family and graduate housing, since 504 apartments doesn't replace all of the housing that we've had over the last 60 years. We're really thrilled. The new buildings are going to have great indoor community space. There's going to be a lot of study rooms, so that you can get away from your apartment if you need to have a Zoom call or without the kids, or study with friends. There'll, spaces for smaller indoor parties. And we're really excited about the project. We are going to have single graduate students in one of the buildings on the site, and you can see a rendering and an overview of the site at the Planning, Design, and Construction website. That's pdc.utah.edu. And if one of you can put that in the chat, under active projects on that website, the West Village Family and Graduate Housing is there, and you can see images or renderings of what the architect says the buildings are going to look like. I think the colors are wrong. It doesn't actually match what exteriors they've selected, but at least it gives you a good idea of where the family buildings will be and where the single graduate student housing will be. We are replacing the medical towers, which is our single graduate housing that we manage now, on the West Village site. So there was a question about, are we bringing single students into the family area? And yes, we are. And we've done that in the past. We've had single graduate students living in the villages. They're not the largest percent of our demographic in the villages, but we think it works well. So someone mentioned that they'd had problems in the past with that, and they didn't mention a situation specifically. I'd love to hear about that. So that we can address it if you've had a problem with a single graduate student neighbor. But they will be in their own building, but the architects have designed an intentional flow between the different buildings through the courtyards, so that it feels like a community. But they will have their own building, and we're not going to be, we'll be less likely than we are now to rent apartments next to each other that are families and single graduate students with the new design. Those medical towers are really old, like the Aspen and Cedar buildings in the villages, and it's time for them to come down. So they'll be closed about the same time that our new graduate housing is finished in the summer of 2023 is when the project is slated to be open. Had a question about rent with that new project. And rental fees are not going to match our current prices. Obviously, we're going to have debt on these buildings, and so the prices will be higher, but we have expected all along to remain below market rate and have month-to-month leases that seem to work very well for our population of students, rather than tying people to semester or year-long contracts. So our intent is to continue that month-to-month model with below market rent. The next question we got a question about neighbor nuisances. A couple of questions. I would just advise, if your neighbor is engaging in behavior that's a nuisance, or you feel like they're violating the quiet hours that are outlined in the apartment living policy that we've got in the resident handbook, which is 10 p.m. to 7 a.m., My first recommendation would be for you to approach your neighbor and have a conversation about that behavior. So we want this to be a community where people feel comfortable talking to each other. Ideally, you can have a conversation about, hey, you were vacuuming at midnight last night, and that actually doesn't work for me. Can you try doing that at another time? If that's uncomfortable, and that doesn't change behavior, you can always reach out to your resident assistant, and they can initiate that introduction if you've never met your neighbor, that meeting, and kind of help with that conversation. They're happy to do that. They're trained in doing that. And that can begin the relationship. So maybe you can have the conversation on your own if it's repeat behavior. But again, as outlined in our policy, if you feel uncomfortable with that or feel like you need help because it's repeat behavior, repeat violations, please contact the main office. Valerie or me, we are so happy to mediate with those issues and help in any way we can. And we know living in a densely populated community like this, there's going to be issues sometimes, and so we're happy to help with that. You can reach out, just main office phone number, main office email, apartments@usa.utah.edu. Another question was about smoking and whether or not it's allowed. Effective July 1st, 2018, the University of Utah became a tobacco-free campus. U Student Apartments is part of that tobacco-free campus. We're part of the University of Utah, and we're on university property. Smoking is not allowed in any building or in the common areas. So we do investigate all smoking complaints, try to send out reminders, particularly if people are smoking in the stairwells and in their apartment. That's smoking of any substance. We try to enforce that with education in a positive, non-confrontational manner, but we do try to address any smoking complaints that we hear. If a student refuses to comply with that rule, they can be referred to the Dean of Students office. Or if a staff member refuses to comply with that rule, they can be referred to Human Resources. But in the official university policy, no student or staff member will be terminated or expelled for violating the smoking policy. So it's more of an encouragement than it would be disciplinary action, but we are officially a tobacco-free campus. Let's see, next question I've got was related to storage. We did receive a couple of questions about storage in the laundry rooms in the Cedar Courts. I acknowledge that our current storage system is not ideal. The apartments are small, we don't have a lot of space, and the laundry rooms feel even smaller in some courts, depending on how many bicycles we've got in there. Our current space in the laundry rooms allows for bicycle strollers and toys as long as they're tagged properly. If items are not tagged in the laundry room, please let your RA know. They have the ability to address that with Valerie Green, and we'll address those problems as we hear of them. We are trying to prevent, by allowing that storage in the laundry room, we're trying to prevent large strollers and bicycles and tricycles from going up and down the stairs. It's really loud and it's really dangerous. And so that's our intent by allowing storage in the laundry rooms. But we don't have enough space in the Cedar laundry rooms to allot a certain square footage to each apartment. It just isn't feasible with the space we've got, and also having them act as, servicing as laundry rooms as a customer service. So that's not something that we can change. We are going to be reconditioning the laundry rooms, though, over the next 6 months. We've got approval for funding for a project to paint, clean up, freshen up the laundry room, since they all look like they're from 1961 when they were originally built. But as part of that, I haven't received funding for new bicycle racks yet, but as part of that, we're looking at potentially modernizing the racks, and maybe that would allow for more space, because the type of racks we've got in those rooms are pretty old, and there's some more efficient ways to store bikes and other things, and we're looking at that, but that's not part of the initial funding of the painting and cleaning out new cove base and things like that. Yes, Lindsay. You're muted, sorry.
Okay. We just had a question in the chat. It says, could we store garden supplies in the laundry rooms like tomato cages?
According to our current policy, that is not allowed. It's bicycle strollers and storage. I'm going to ask Valerie to give me a thumbs up or down if that's correct. Why don't you chime in?
Yeah, the tomato cages are really sharp and kids could get hurt on them. You could talk with your RA. There are some storage closets in each of the laundry rooms. You could talk with your individual RA to see if you might store them in there, make sure they're marked that they belong to you, and just store them for the season. But we don't want them in the general area because of the sharp points on the ends of them. So.
All right. I don't have any more questions in the chat.
Okay, great. Thank you, Valerie and Lindsay. Okay, my next question is related to campus shuttles. As some of you know, and some of you might not know, as Director of Auxiliary Services, I work with the Commuter Services Department very closely. The Director of Commuter Services, his office is actually next door to mine in Fort Douglas. And so we talk daily. And so I took this question to him to ask about campus shuttles, and he's very open to further discussion about improving service to the villages. They did discontinue the green and purple routes in a response to increasing the efficiency of the entire system. So it's, we run what is now, it used to be the second largest transportation system on campus. Now I think Park City has beat us, and we're the third largest transportation system on campus. And so they're looking at shuttles system-wide, looking at ridership weekly. They're counting people that are getting on and off the shuttles and adjusting routes accordingly. The route with the new circulator route that we've got is longer. It's you're not just thinking you're experiencing that. It is longer than what we had previously on the way back. But we've had historically low ridership in the evenings. And so they found that Safe Ride and the circulator were a more efficient way of using their funds. I think some of the things they considered, he told me the routes have to operate clockwise, or bus stops would have to be on the opposite sides of the east and west villages, which would not be convenient or safe in the evening hours for our residents. And also wanted me to remind folks that after 6 p.m., anyone can request a Safe Ride, which is door-to-door service, kind of like an Uber or Lyft. And it seems to work much better for folks that are riding at night in some instances. That being said, Director of Commuter Services, his name is Colin Simmons, is completely willing to explore other options. Potentially, if our needs don't align with their funding, maybe there's potential for student apartments to subsidize a route if that's what is required. I did receive ridership data that we can share out maybe with our summary of this meeting, rather than sharing it right now, because it's a big spreadsheet that we don't need to talk about tonight, but I'm willing to share that with everyone. You can take a look at the ridership data, and maybe that will make us help us to make more informed suggestions to the director that then they could consider. But happy to explore that further. That's the answer that I've got for this evening. The next question was regarding electric vehicle charging stations. And this one's fun because I was actually already actively working on this project. So this is something that I can say, hey, we're already doing something. I actually have another meeting tomorrow with commuter services and some construction coordinators. We have that pesky utility infrastructure problem again when it comes to electric vehicle charging stations. But I am completely aware that if we're going to stay open with some of these older buildings for the next decade, we've got to add stations. The number of cars increases every year with residents moving in, and that's great. People are buying electric vehicles, and we're going to try to provide areas for you to charge. That's going to come with a funding need, but for the West Village, there will be multiple electric vehicle stations included in the new project. So we're going to have better stations and new utility infrastructure by the summer of 2023. For the East Village, that's where we've got to find a solution, right, for the next decade. And so if I can find a quick solution for $100,000 or less, I'm going to go this year. I'm going to go try to get that funding this year outside of the budget cycle. I've got the backing of multiple student emails requesting this as a project, and that always helps with approval. That's not a guarantee, but if it's not just me asking, if I'm saying I've got a group of students asking for this that have cars now, that are living here now, and this is only going to increase, I think we've got a good chance for it. So it's a matter of trying to find the right charging stations. Where can we locate them with utility infrastructure issues that we've got for the least amount of money? But I'm working on that now. We hear you, know it's an issue, and we're going to try to solve it. Let's see. Next question was related to laundry. We're working with our laundry vendor, Hainsworth Laundry Weekly, to analyze the data about laundry usage to ensure that we meet our contract obligation to them and they meet their contract obligation to us. 3 or 4 buildings had usage that warranted an additional dryer in this last week. And I think those dryers have been installed. Valerie, I'm not sure. Do you know if they have? Not yet.
Oh, one in the 700 court, but as of last Thursday, they weren't yet installed in the 1100 court. So,
okay. So we're actively looking at the data. They are going to add a few dryers in locations where you're averaging more than 3 loads a day. That's what really warrants an additional machine and makes it really not even profitable, but net zero. You know, they can't lose money on the machines that they're putting in per the contract. So we're looking at that and we'll continue to monitor that weekly to try to help folks out. Hopefully usage balances out and everyone isn't trying to do their laundry on Saturday morning. Hopefully we can, get into a rhythm and it makes it a little easier for residents. I know it was an issue when I lived in the 900 court for a couple of years as well. Is sharing laundry isn't ideal, but we're trying to work with our vendor to make it a better experience than it has been. My next question is related to security. That was just addressing, my notes just were to address the lights on the top of the vehicle, which we did at the beginning of the meeting. I think lastly, I'd just like to encourage individuals on the call and when you're talking to your neighbors to get involved at University Student Apartments, reiterating what I said at the outset. There's people like me and Valerie behind the scenes making decisions that impact your lives every day. And we're trying to do the best we can, but your feedback and your input is always helpful. Even your complaints are helpful, because while I used to live in the village, I don't now. I'm not out and about every day and every evening. I spend a lot of my days in meetings, and you tend to miss things in the bubble as an administrator, right? About what's happening just in your day-to-day lives. So get involved, communicate with your council and your resident assistants. They have relationships with us, or we welcome you to come build a relationship with us and reach out to us individually, and we're happy to meet with you or talk with you, respond via email. get involved if there's things that you're concerned about your community or your individual situation. There's someone out there that can help. I think we've got a great team at student departments, and the University of Utah as a whole has an administration that cares very much about family and graduate students. If they didn't, we wouldn't be building a $127 million project that took them valuing you as campus community members to do that. And so they're putting their money where their mouth is. But if there's small things or large things that we can do now, we want to know about it. Any additional questions that you see, Lindsay or Annie, or anything else that we can address?
There's no more questions in the chat.
Okay.
But we could wait like just a couple minutes to see if there's anything.
Sure. Sure. And Valerie, if you think there's anything that we missed or I missed in my answers, please chime in as well.
I would just tell everybody about the Thanksgiving events on Friday. Community Club has a morning event and they're doing pumpkin volcanoes with some ASU student leaders. And in the afternoon, we have cultural fusion. And for those of you who are American domestic students, we'd love to have you come and join our international students and share with them about what your Thanksgiving traditions are and meet some really cool people from all over the world. So those are both in the West Community Center, and emails coming out tomorrow.
I think I'll address one more thing that I think I missed in my conversation about the new construction. I think part of one of the questions we received was that what other buildings are coming down. And I specifically called out 300 and 600 Court that are still standing. They're coming down for parking. But it is the intention of the university, like I say, over the next 10 or 12 years, to demolish the remaining old buildings that were built in the 60s and 70s because of the old utility infrastructure and because of seismic issues. They're, as you know, because you're all living in them, they're really nearing the end of their useful lives, even though it's a pretty great place to live. The buildings have seen their day, and they're really hard to modernize with the center block construction that they've got. It's cheaper to tear them down. But we don't have a set schedule of what will come down after the 300 and 600 Court. With the housing demand the way it is in the Salt Lake Valley, we want to be really mindful of that. We're full right now. We are nearing 100% occupancy, with the exception of 300 and 600 Court, where we're vacating, where we're not re-renting after people leave. And so we don't have a set schedule for demo, but no matter what we do, it will be with a phased approach like we've done in the past. And any individual that's living in a building that's scheduled to come down will get at least 6 months notice prior to that demolition or that closure. So that's what I know. And schedule is really TBD.
I'm just going to do a small blurb too. We have a holiday fest coming up on December 4th. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have some crafts from the library, and we're going to have Santa come, and there's going to be a hot chocolate bar, and it's just going to be a blast. So we hope we'll see you guys there. And I'm also not seeing any more questions in the chat.
I was just going to say, since there's no kids on the call, we do need a Santa. So if anyone's interested in earning a rent reduction, we do need a Santa for that day for 2 hours of Santaing. So contact Lindsay or me if you're interested in that.
Right. Well, John, what say you? Should we call it?
I think we should call it. You've given ample time. And Soraya Porter, thank you for saying that. That's so thoughtful. We love working and trying to help out all the residents here. And a lot of what we do is helped by the input and the work and the kindness you extend to your neighbors, but especially the input and questions you send us helps us to know where to put our efforts. So thank you, Soraya. Yeah, I think we're just going to call it. Thanks everyone for participating. Thank you, Jennifer, for taking the time to come and explain all that. Annie, Lindsay, thanks for helping as well. Valerie, thank you for everything and for helping us do our job as resident council. And Mariah, thank you for getting this all the tech stuff organized and recorded. So I think we're good to hop off if you're good to go.
Great. Thank you, everybody.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks,
Love
everyone.
serving you guys.
Thank you.